So hello and welcome to this presentation called Management Lessons from the Magnificent Brooklyn Bridge, reflecting on the fundamental drivers of building successful enterprises. My name is Rick Serrano and I will have the privilege of guiding you today through this presentation. I thank you very much, the organizers, for inviting me, Philippe and Anthony. It's a pleasure to be here with you and your successful team for this presentation. So hopefully you find it useful and practical. I will try to be fast and go quickly through the material, but please do not hesitate to stop me at any point if you have questions or comments. So let's get started. Let me start by telling you that I have always been fascinated by bridges. Bridges are for me something really very special, not only from an engineering standpoint, not only from an architectural standpoint, but also for what they mean. What they mean in the sense that they unite people, they connect shores, and they bring people together in a magnificent way. And they also represent a lot for the cities where they are built. Normally, important bridges like this one, this is the Roman bridge in Cordoba in southern Spain, for example, they represent a big progress for the city that builds them, and that contains a lot of energy also, and brings a lot of life to the city. Not to mention that they activate the economy. This is one of my favorite bridges. You know, since I was a little kid, I have always been fascinated by these structures. This is one of my absolute favorite. You most probably know it is Ponte Vecchio in Florence, uniting both shores of the Arno River, which is also fascinating not only because of its beauty, but also because of the fact that it has actually another bridge built into it, the so-called Corridoio Vasariano that runs above, and where the noble family of the Medici could go and cross the Arno without mixing with the people. And so many nice bridges around the world. This is one other of my favorites, the Kapellbrücke in Lucerne in Switzerland, also being a very, very intimate part of the city, reflecting its personality, connecting its inhabitants, connecting its people, and uniting them, and being able also to move things from one shore to the other. So bridges are indeed loaded with a lot of energy of the city. Of course, we cannot go without mentioning this beauty, the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, which is especially fascinating not only because of its engineering and because of its length or because of its architecture, but also because of the fact that it unites both parts of California over the ocean. So that made it a special, difficult to build bridge, right? And this again, no, I mean, there are so many bridges, and each and every one of them for me is fascinating and can teach us a lot of things. So I'm going to be talking to you about bridges, but very much in particular about this one here that you most probably know, the Brooklyn Bridge in Manhattan, uniting Manhattan and Brooklyn in New York over the East River. So this is a very famous bridge. You have certainly seen it in many movies, or you have probably even visited in person. But we need to go back and make a little bit of history. So what was happening in New York before the construction of the Brooklyn Bridge? Well, before the construction, you had a flourishing city with a booming economy, with so many people wanting to live there, with so many immigrants coming from all over the globe to find a new fortune, to build themselves a new future in the Big Apple, and they were populating and overpopulating New York. Everybody wanted to live there, right? And of course, this made the traffic between the two shores, mainly Manhattan shore and the Brooklyn shore, a very transited corridor. And they were moving, of course, in all sort of boats and ships and vessels of every kind. But of course, that could not be enough. The city definitely needed a bridge. And so the city asked one of its most famous engineers to come up with a proposal for a bridge. And he came up with a proposal. I'm going to tell you the name in a moment. He came up with a proposal of building a suspension bridge. But the point is that, you know, in the middle of the 19th century, suspension bridges were collapsing all across Europe. Their industrial wires, they would break, or they would fail with hard weather, and they were sometimes snapped under the weight of their decks, under the weight of the loads were making them fail. And these were many cases like this all over Europe. So of course nobody wanted to hear about these kind of breaches, or at least people were very skeptical. So this is the person who proposed the bridge. He was a German American engineer named John Roebling. He proposed to build the largest and most expensive suspension bridge ever in those years to cross precisely the East River. And the authorities were very skeptical. They didn't wanted to give him the contract, of course, because of what was happening in Europe at the time. But after a while, because of the growth of the traffic, people traffic, and people transit between the two shores, of course, the city said, okay, come on, let's give it a try. And then finally, in 1867, they approved Roebling's project. And so he said, okay, let's go and build. But now when he got started, he wanted to avoid, of course, to do the mistakes that had been made in Europe. So he started with a hybrid model of suspension bridge. He tried to incorporate large cables, but also tried to create central pillars, like very, very strong pillars. They are also called the Gothic towers. You can see them here. At each bank of the river, and they were supposed to be enough to sustain the load and to avoid the failures that the others were experiencing in Europe. You can see here all the wave of cables, all the connectors, all the structure, very sophisticated. And as you can see, you can tell that the use of cables are multi-dimensional and multi-direction. So it's not only vertical, it's not only diagonal, it's a combination of them to come up with a solution. Even more, he went with a very innovative solution, putting the cable going into the pillars, going into the Gothic towers, inside of it to embed them into the structure and make them very, very solid. But of course, the model drew from cables that sometimes were not enough, so they needed to do like a really web of diagonals to carry the loads of the bridge, which were of course outstandingly heavy, and they needed to be distributed in different axes. So that's what he found as a solution. By adding these cables, Roebling was able to improve the bridge's stability, and also he was able to reduce the pressure on the anchor cables. Some of these had already been tried in other bridges, but not with the scope of Roebling's project, because his bridge was really longer, measuring almost 500 meters in the clear, and that was more than almost twice the length of any previous suspension bridge that had been built. So it was really very demanding and very ambitious. Now, this is the outcome. So this is the beauty of it. You can see, look at the wave of wires and how the Gothic towers connect them with the platform. I think it's fascinating. Think of it not only from an engineering and architectural point of view. Think of it also as something that is uniting human beings, something that is connecting cities, connecting and allowing for the transportation of goods and people. These are the Gothic towers, as you can see. The project of Roebling included almost 6,000 kilometers of metal wire to create all the web that was supporting the structure. And they standed on these towers, which are almost 100 meters going above the sea level. So that made them really very tall structures for those years. So really a very complex project. But of course, this is the outcome, as you can see. Now, the project had a lot of challenges throughout. It was not an easy task to complete. One of the most critical moments came in 1869, when Roebling was supervising the works himself, and he was there at the job site, and then a boat was coming across the river, and the boat crashed onto the platform where he was standing, and somehow he crushed his foot against the dock, and so he got really hurt, and then some weeks afterwards he died of tetanus. So that was the way Roebling's life came to its end, and then that was of course very bad for the project. Had it not been for his son Washington Roebling, who was also a trained engineer, and he continued his dad's project very actively. He kept on with the construction. And the following year, so in 1870, 71, the constructions of the towers finally began, and it was very challenging because the method that they were using was, they wanted to go to the riverbed, creating these caisson foundations, but they were using pneumatic technology to basically pump in air and pull out water. And they were creating these sort of let me call them containers inside the earth, but they were pumping out the air, and that created all sorts of difficulties because, of course, they didn't have a lot of electric light. They had some, but not sufficient. So they were also operating with candles and all sort of rudimentary equipment, and people were working very long hours under very bad conditions with gas lamps and so. And of course, there were accidents all the time. There were floods. Sometimes there were fires, and they even got this problem that we now know what it is. That is called decompression sickness, decompression failures, because you go down and then they went out very quickly, and that created this problem for people, and several workers died. I mean, it was very challenging, and they almost 1 year later, like around 1872, Washington was surviving, but barely surviving one of these events in the construction site, and he did survive, but he was basically paralyzed, and he needed to remain in bed. So you can see here in this painting, very famous painting, where he is from his apartment supervising the construction of the bridge. But as you know, it's almost impossible to supervise such a complex project from the distance. So what happened is that he first asked his wife, Emily, to start helping him by passing messages basically from his bedroom to the job site down at the bridge. And that is what Emily started doing. But after a little while, she was not only carrying communications to the engineers and back to her husband, but she was also getting involved into the day-to-day operation, day-to-day management of the project. And she is basically the one who finished this ambitious project. Unfortunately, the bridge faced many difficulties and many pitfalls. The most important one was around the end of the 1880s, when they discovered that the wires that they had been installing were defective. So the wires were really not of the quality that they have expected, but many of them were already installed. So the only alternative that they had was to add reinforcing wires, so to put additional cables to strengthen the structure of the bridge. So imagine the cost of that and the time of that as well. No? But okay, it took a lot of years, almost 15 years to finish it, and almost the equivalent of 500 million to complete the work. And it cost basically the life of the three of them, the three Roeblings, before they could finish the bridge, which was inaugurated in 1883. But of course, once it was inaugurated, it became an absolute landmark for New York, and an absolute important development for the city. You can see it's also beautiful, of course, from an architectural and engineering point of view. These are the three key people who made this possible. Right? Now, this is the story of the bridge. But the real question here is, what can we learn from the Brooklyn Bridge story? So what can we derive from this interesting story? What can we learn from building bridges in general? So when we stare at a bridge, when we look at a bridge carefully, and we question ourselves, what is that bridge doing? What can I learn from it? So what can I apply from the Brooklyn Bridge to my own story? That is the question to ask. Well, I think there's a lot that we can learn from bridges, especially for those of you who work in engineering, in architecture, with contractors, with people on the field. I think there is a lot of things that one can do to improve, especially if you work in an international corporation like yours, where you are present all over the world and you have a head office giving you projects, giving you plans, giving you budgets, and giving you goals, and you are out there on the field trying to sell, trying to complete projects, trying to be number one in the market, trying to gain clients and do more out there. Well, I think there's a lot of lessons that we can learn. Let me enumerate some of them. First of all, I think bridges are built to get people closer. And in that sense, I think that bridges are here also to bring people closer who are on the field, like you are. You are fighting on the field. You are out there, and the bridges get you closer. So also take a look at this picture, because sometimes people who are on the field, like most of you, you might feel a little bit lonely, like this guy here sitting in that on that bench in front of the Vasco da Gama bridge in Lisbon. You might feel alone, you might feel like isolated, you might feel like too distant. But precisely the bridges are like an indication that you need to get closer, you need to make an effort and reach out and try to be closer to head office, and try to be closer to each other, to the network that you belong to. Also, bridges mean, of course, working hand in hand. So in this case, you with Tractel with its distributors, and really becoming a hand-in-hand operation where you collaborate and you communicate with each other and you enrich from each other. That is the point of the bridge. Now, a third lesson that I derive from here is that if you are on the field, if you are representing your company there in your territory, in your country where you operate, well, documentation, especially marketing and sales strategies, are key to succeed. And you need to get closer to head office to use, understand, and develop them so that you know how to act, and you know how to target clients, how to serve clients, how to become and adopt the new technologies and adopt the new services, and get, in a word, become better and better every day. I think also, of course, using all the creative sales tools that head offices normally give to distributors, normally give to subsidiaries, to companies out there on the field. Well, this is very important, and keeping regular meetings, keeping talking to each other, like you see this bridge touching base, over and over. So see how this design of this beautiful bridge touches base here and then again, and several times touching base. It is important to keep that constant communication through meetings, through calls, through really trying to understand each other and each other's needs and projects. So also, of course, for those of you in this industry, getting closer to architects, getting closer to developers is a fundamental piece. You need to reach out and really go to them, try to understand their needs, try to understand their positions also in their competitive markets, and try to see how can I serve them better, how can I anticipate their needs, how can I work so that we really meet their needs and their expectation. Because precisely, and that's the sixth lesson, expectations are growing. And let me continue talking about the bridge industry, so bridge building industry. The bridges of tomorrow are more and more demanding every day. The architectural devices are even more complex every single day, and they become more and more sophisticated, just like you see on this picture or on this one. Take a look at this bridge. I mean, isn't it beautiful? Isn't it amazing? But it's crazy difficult to build such a bridge. So those are the challenges that we're confronted these days. So more exigencies, more pressure on time, more pressure on budget, more fancy designs. That is exactly what this is all about. And well, I invite you to feel the motivation of belonging to this team. I invite you to feel the motivation of belonging to this successful company and think of you as a crucial element of that bridge that you are all building. So, just like in this photograph, maybe one single piece of metal, maybe one single piece of steel, or one single brick doesn't seem to make the big difference, but in reality, it's the sum of all those little pieces that create the Brooklyn Bridge. So the sum of those, maybe little, but very important, each and every one of them, in the sum of the total. So lesson number 8, just like this photograph, take a look at this photograph. This painter atop the Golden Gate Bridge over the ocean in San Francisco, painting the bridge and looking to the horizon. Be determined, be ambitious, aim for more, fight for more, go for it. This is what you can achieve. This height is the things that you can achieve. 9th lesson, look for new projects, look for new bridges, look for new rivers where you can build new bridges. The creativity is all yours. The sky is the limit, as they say, and you can always look for new projects, look for new bridges to build, and be aggressive, be creative, be innovative. Take a look at this picture of this painting of this bridge. It's really something very, very unusual, and yet it serves the function of connecting two shores. But you need to be innovative. You need to be really hungry for new projects, hungry for building new bridges. Of course, you are also invited to be a source of proposals. So head office wants to hear from you, wants to hear your ideas, wants to hear your plans. Bring them over because they are here to listen to you and to work with you and to find with you solutions for your clients. 11th lesson, believe and be proud. I really invite you just to look at how the Golden Gate stands there with all of its pride atop the ocean. Just be proud. Just believe in what you're doing and be proud and work with that pride in mind every single day. It's going to get tough. It's going to get difficult. The road is not going to be easy all the time, but you have the pride to build it. You are together, and like the wires in this bridge or in any other important bridge, they are well connected. Make sure you stay well connected. Finally, lesson number 12, show our clients why they are choosing us. This, of course, is not a bridge, as you know. This is the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. But I bring it to you because you know that it has been recently wrapped by the artist Christo, and your company's equipment has been used to do this. So this is how big you are. This is how important you are. I invite you to believe in yourself, and I invite you to feel very, very proud of what you're achieving, and to take from the Brooklyn Bridge all the lessons and all the messages that the bridge is communicating to you. The Brooklyn Bridge is there for you. Use it as a reminder of how great you can be. Use it as a reminder of how great your company can be and of the greatness that you can achieve with and for your clients and for everybody working for you, and aim for more. Aim for more and aim for an exciting professional career and for success in the marketplace. With that, I will open it up now for questions and comments. And I invite you to follow me on my YouTube channel, Rick Serrano. I also invite you to subscribe to my channel, Rick Serrano, Luxembourg. And there are a lot of informations in the channel of several topics, several disciplines. I invite you to follow me, and I thank you very much for your attention. And once again, thank you to Philippe and Anthony for this nice invitation. It has been great being with you here today. Thank you very much and have a nice rest of the day. Goodbye.